Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. So today we are here to talk about this. And don't let the scale fool you, forced perspective and all that. This is not any form of Colt or FN 25 auto. It's a bit bigger than that, and it is chambered in 32 auto. This is the Bronco 1918 model 7.65 millimeter, made presumably in Eibar, Spain. And it's kind of an interesting little pistol. Before we get into the weeds on that, I'd like to shout out to my supporters on Patreon. This is very much a shoestring operation, and your contributions help more than you know. Also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses who have contributed to the channel in innumerable ways and really helped make this work. And as always, shout out to Rain City Shooting Center for providing material support to the channel. So, in the early part of the 20th century, Eibar, Spain, made a lot of guns. There were quite a few small manufacturers there, and generally speaking, they knocked off Colts. And sometimes even, dare I say it, improved on the design by putting the safety somewhere sensible and easy to use, instead of where Colt and FN had the John Browning design safety located. So this is an example of such, but it's a little unusual because it is neither a Ruby nor a 25 auto, which were the most common types made, and it has some interesting features, and as you may note, it is quite small. Now, in appearance, it looks very much like an FN 1905 or a Colt 1908, writ large in a bigger caliber. But this is not the case. Not exactly. So, this came to me. It had no grips, no extractor, and no firing pin. So I made an extractor and a firing pin. It was a couple hours work in total. They are not complicated parts, and I'm pretty good at fabricating simple metal parts. I did make grips for it out of walnut, just some random walnut I had lying around. These are not quite the form of the early grips, but I wasn't much inclined to pay $45 for a set of reproductions. And the screws are Allen head, because that's what I had on hand that fit. I suppose at some point I will replace them with slot head screws just for the right look, and maybe do a little more shaping to get them to look more the shape of the original grips. So, two replacement parts, an old inexpensive gun of indeterminate quality. So how does it shoot? Despite the microscopic sights, it actually shoots all right. It is not the most reliable gun in the world, and I attribute that to the magazine, which I also had to repair and could probably use a little more tweaking. So let's have a look at this thing in the tabletop, and we'll see what makes it a little unexpected. The Bronco is quite small. It's 5 inches long and 3 3/4 inches tall if you include the really large heel magazine release. Now, the magazine the feed lips were pretty well fouled up when I got it, and as I said, could use a little tweaking. The magazine holds 6 rounds quite comfortably, and the gun, for all that it looks like an enlarged FN 1908, 1905 or Colt 1908 25 auto, which is what I assumed it was when I first got it, but it really isn't. So, To take down, you apply the safety. Oh, this does have a magazine safety, by the way, a feature which I find particularly annoying and is common on European guns. So, lock the slide back using the safety, and just like a Colt, rotate the barrel, and then rotate it back and remove it. And then when you let the slide forward, the gun comes apart. And you want to be careful because the gun will come apart and quickly shed the full-length guide rod, which is a captured recoil system, which is an interesting feature, for a gun of this type and provenance, and I think a very good one. So, that's the field stripping. Now, the safety at this point just flops, because what normally keeps tension on it is the end of the guide rod. And unlike the guns it most resembles, this is a hammer-fired gun. It's a single-action hammer-fired gun, which is unexpected. So this incorporates elements not only of the Colt 1908, like the grip safety, but also the 1903. And you can see the hammer is a very simple affair. Got a good bit of tension on it. I did not have any light strikes. So it's a very simple gun, of course, being straight blowback, and the barrel has lugs on it here, which slide into these grooves on the frame. And it's really reasonably well made. There's not it's a little dirty and a little perished from rust, but, it's all right. Now, this screw is what holds in the firing pin, which was missing when I got this. And that was a bit of pain in the ass because there was nowhere I could reach calipers in here to measure the hole, so I just had to eyeball it and then fit it by hand. But it's a very simple part, and I have a lathe, so that works out nicely. So, reassembly. Insert the recoil spring. Place the slide over it so that the recoil spring, you have to push it a little bit here, so that the recoil spring actually goes in the hole for it, which can require a wee bit of fiddling. But there we are. Lock the slide back, reinsert the barrel, turn it, and then turn it to re-engage the lugs, close the slide, and you're back in one piece. It's a very simple gun, and the quality really does seem to be all right. This one has had a fairly hard life, and again, it was missing some parts. The extractor is very simple. It's just a piece of 3/32 inch 01 tool steel, and it was just a matter of getting the shape right and getting it to fit, which was not that difficult. Now, the trigger pull, and I have to have the magazine inserted, but the gun is empty because of that damn grip safety. Magazine safety. So the trigger pull is really quite heavy. The handy-dandy Lyman trigger gauge maxes out before the trigger is pulled. The trigger pull is about 13, 14 pounds. But honestly, again, when shooting it, I didn't really notice, but then I have gorilla hands. So it really didn't bother me that the trigger pull was so heavy. The reset is actually quite decent, as befits a single-action hammer-fired semi-auto. But again, that trigger pull is just super, super heavy. But it is what it is. I don't think having a heavy trigger on a pocket pistol, especially a single-action hammer-fired pocket pistol, is necessarily a bad idea. The sights, as you can see, are almost not there. There is a tiny notch at the rear. I can't even get them on camera. There is a tiny notch at the rear, and surprisingly, the inside of the groove is machined to reduce reflection. So just in case the phase of the moon and the right rituals have been performed, you can actually see the front sight. You won't have to worry about reflection. And the front sight is, as you can see, exceptionally tiny. Let's see if I can get something behind it. Yeah, you can see it's just basically, focus please, just basically a bump. So the guns of Ibar Spain, especially the early guns, often come in for a lot of criticism, and sometimes rightfully so. But this, it's nothing fancy, but it's serviceable. And if you were in the interwar period between World War I and II and wanted something affordable to carry around in a pocket, you could do a lot worse. It is, of course, like guns of this era tend to be, quite a chunk of steel, because it is all steel. But that was the norm then, and I don't think it really bothered people much. It's kind of a neat little gun, and it cost next to nothing for me to pick it up because it needed work and was part of a package deal. So I'm really rather pleased with it, and I think I will even bother with getting the magazine tweaked and seeing if I can get it nicely reliable. I'm never going to, carry it or anything, but it's a nice piece of firearms history in that it is in that category of guns I love so much, the sort of gun everyday people could afford and used for everyday uses. And that's something we need to pay attention to, because we all love the fancy stuff and the expensive and elite stuff. But these were the meat and potatoes of handguns for an awful lot of people, and they deserve to be acknowledged for that. So there's the Bronco. I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.